Good morning. Welcome to the Connector Podcast. I'm really excited to have you all tune in today. Joining me today is my special guest, Christina Wegner, VP of Marketing for the Vollrath Companies. Hi, Christina.
Good morning. Good to see you.
You too. Her LinkedIn title reads VP of Marketing, Fortune 100 Marketing Strategist, Brand Steward Creator, Inclusion Advocate, and Relationship Nurturer. We'll get into some parts of that, but I think a great way for our listeners to form a connection to you is through music.
Awesome.
What's in your current playlist, Christina?
So I'm a big fan, especially in the summertime, of lifting spirits and getting going in the morning. So Zac Brown is a big, I'm a big fan of Zac Brown. And so we play that a lot in the mornings as we're getting ready as a family.
Awesome. Really good. Well, let's get into learning a little bit more about you. And it's the Connector Podcast. Christina, I'd like to hear, I've never asked you this before, what's your first recollection of how you and I first became connected?
Good question. So I feel like we've known each other for a really long time, but in reality, it's only been about 4 years. I was introduced to you by way of another member of my team. And we were working with you and your team on some brand engagement activities and really developing a voice for one of our brands within the organization.
Yeah, that was neat. I remember the time too, and we have spent some years together now. I can trace the lineage of like just about everybody I know back to when and where and how that came to be. And so I just want a quick share and then back to you. The backstory, honestly, was that in the first few months of me returning to Wisconsin from my career start in Phoenix, I had begun a brand and identity project for Rockwell Automation, and a new hire, about as green as myself, I suppose, was Kathy Fitzgerald, your coworker there at Vollrath. And then I followed her, through her career. But yeah, that's really how our paths crossed and starts way back.
Yeah, I was just talking with someone the other day of the importance of not burning any bridges, right? And making sure to cultivate relationships and make sure even if you leave a job or whatever, you leave it in a very nice way so that you can continue those relationships. You never know when you may cross paths with somebody again.
Yeah, great point. Case in point right here. Well, Christina, I know your career touches on Kohler Corporation, Northwestern Mutual Life. Can you connect the dots for us on the backdrop of your career and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely have an interesting roadmap of a career starting in sports. I started in intercollegiate sports at the University of Montana, and then made my way to the PGA Tour. And funny enough, I was talking with someone this morning about this, that my intention was to be in pre-med in college and to be an orthopedic surgeon so that I could be doing sports medicine. And so I took a little bit of a different path because organic chemistry really got me my freshman year in college, and I figured it wasn't the right path for me long term. So sports marketing was a space that I really was passionate about because I could do the event planning, organizational side of things, and then have the sports in there too. So that's how I made my way through the intercollegiates and then the PGA and then PGA of America. And I got my degree in business and a second degree in marketing. And so all of those things worked really nicely together. And after the PGA, Kohler came knocking at my door, if you will. And they said, if you want to stay in Kohler and work for us for a few years, you might be able to have the golf side of things and the marketing side of things. And so I made a pit stop in plumbing with the Kohler Company, and I found out quickly that that's really where the awesome marketing budgets were and where beautiful brand of the Bold Look of Kohler lived, and I really became passionate about building brands and connecting with consumers. And then I made my way to Northwestern Mutual after the Kohler Company, and I spent some time in field marketing is the space that I worked in, and it was really to develop marketing plans custom for the financial advisors in niche markets. So multicultural markets, specifically Hispanic, African American, and the Asian market, and then life stage markets, so retirement markets and young personal markets, and really got to meet a lot of incredible people and really became passionate about the work that Northwestern Mutual was doing, especially in the D&I space during my time there. And then I made my way to the food service industry. And now, as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm the vice president of marketing. So I oversee all of our brands across both the United States and the globe. It's a really awesome space to be in. I love eating food. And so our equipment and the things that we do, not only from the Vollrath food service side, but also the Vollrath manufacturing side, has usually a touch across the food service space.
Yeah. It's funny, our paths didn't really cross at Northwestern Mutual.
Yeah.
We have so many. I think when I first linked into you, there's like 49 common folks. And I had done maybe close to 20 years of consulting there myself, and sometimes in the D&I space.
Yeah.
Alongside Greg and even way back. Well, that's great. Thank you for the story, and I love its origins in the sports piece. Christina, I would say in your position at Vollrath, I'd call you an ambidextrous leader. And what I mean by that is that I've seen you have influence over your department and the marketing, the way that you contribute there, but also in a very high level of strategic direction for the company. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree. I like that title, ambidextrous leader.
Yeah, you've got your hand in the immediate and also the future. What could you tell us about the health of the organization that has you flourishing alongside those that lead Vollrath?
Yeah. So, the one thing or a couple of the things that were really appealing to me when I came to Vollrath Company is the size and the culture. And, we're a mid-size global company, and that allows for not only myself, but most, if not all of the people within the organization to really feel the impact that their work does on the company, the growth of the company, the downfall of the company, anything that's really happening, you get to have your finger on that pulse as much or as little as you want. And so, as you know, I like having my hands in the mix of things and feeling like I can really have impact on the growth of the company. And so right now, through the pandemic, as many people know, the food service industry was truly impacted in a negative way through, March and really until the end of last year. Things were completely shut down, from hospitality to restaurants, colleges and universities. There were some spaces that were really thriving, convenience stores, healthcare, and even healthcare was thriving in a different kind of way. It wasn't necessarily a positive way that was helping us. It was more of a survival kind of way. But right now, we really have hit an incredible stride as an organization, one that I'm incredibly proud of, because we've built a foundation prior to the pandemic happening. If I could have read what was coming, I would definitely not be in this position. I would have an island somewhere and enjoying that. But, we worked with your team specifically to develop and redesign and launch a new website in February of last year, which the timing was absolutely impeccable to position our brands where they needed to be positioned at the right time and the right place, and start really drip marketing out to the right customers, really awesome content that we've been developing as a team, so that when the market did resurge, we were in the right place at the right time. And so we're seeing the impact of that now. And, almost all the states are open again, nearly, in some way, shape, or form. We do have some states, specifically in the Pacific Northwest, say that 3 times, that are not quite open, but we're definitely seeing the resurgence. And the benefit that we have as an organization is that over 80% of our products are assembled or manufactured in the United States, whereas a lot of our competitors import a lot of their goods. So that benefit to our product being manufactured here is we can get it to our customers faster. So we're seeing a lot of changeover to our specification of our products and things of that nature. And sure, we're having supply chain issues like a lot of people are, but we're really proud to be able to say that we don't have the lead time challenges to the extent that some of our competitors might be seeing.
Wow. Yeah. I think of that timing and the fortitude.
Yeah. And, you mentioned this kind of goes hand in hand, being an ambidextrous leader, that, marketing reports into me, but we're a team, right? So it's really important as an executive team and as a company to identify, during the pandemic, some parts of our organization were hit harder than others. Like HR was hit so hard by having to deal with, layoffs and retirements and rehiring people. And, there was pressure on marketing during the pandemic. There was pressure on the manufacturing side with a limited skeletal crew, those types of things. Well, now shifting out of the pandemic, the pressures on other parts of the organization, whether it's our supply chain team, our customer service team, our finance team, still pressure on marketing to make sure we're finding the right message and balance. But, as a leader, making sure that people really feel recognized and heard and understood that they're doing everything they can to push the company forward and keep the company successful, and they're not failing. Because I think that that's a little bit of the feeling is we're trying so hard, but we're not making the progress we want. But, it's like finding the way to recognize them and make sure that they understand that they're making more progress than, we even thought possible. So it's really important to recognize people that way.
That's awesome. Yeah. And just great team leadership of nurturing that spirit. It leads pretty well into the next topic, and I wanted to just sort of steer it over towards the creative component of your team and my team. I shared on my previous podcast, those are my people. As a creative director, I love the brilliance of thinking, and those personalities are different from some of your executive leadership and that. Like I said, I think I choose to be with those my people, but to just bring all the feels and awareness and lead that strong. I guess I just wanted to ask you, what does leading the creative process in marketing look like for you?
Yeah. So I love creatives. I feel like I'm a little bit of a in-betweener. I'm a marketer. If I had to choose to be on the creative side versus the more analytical side, I think naturally I choose to be on the more creative side. And my creative team will say, okay, you can tap out of your art direction position right now and go do your other job. But I have a lot of passion for the creative side. And I think that it helps me to understand creatives better because of that. But creatives are, like you said, a very special breed in understanding the sensitivity that they have, the passion that they have for the work that they put out. And it's not just a machine creating something, and that, when they get feedback that and told that maybe it's not exactly what the client wants, that they will take it and just walk away at all points in the process, right? So really understanding how to coach them, and especially newer and more junior creatives. I think making sure that they understand through the process that it isn't personal, and how to separate, the feedback that they get on something from taking that personally and then taking that constructive feedback. On the flip side of it, being in my position that I'm in, and being at the organization for 4 years now, it's really been a journey for us to help educate our executives, and those that we call our clients internally, on the creative process and what their role is in the creative process, so that they're providing really constructive feedback and saying, okay, after you have written a creative brief, have we hit, on the key messages, the key target audiences? And then is it now just a subjective opinion on you don't like the color, or you don't like, these things? And so it's finding the right balance between both of those groups for me to make sure that we're going in the right direction, and it just doesn't become a game of subjectivity and personal taste. I will say that since I have been on board as well, we do have a very solid set of brand guidelines that help give us some guardrails around what a client can give feedback on and what isn't necessary for them to give feedback on. And it's still a work in progress to just make sure that everybody knows what their specific role is in that process. It also really helps us, and we're not perfect at this either, but to really limit the number of rounds of review, so that people aren't getting hung up on, every time they see it, they find something else because they think they need to find something else to pick at. So our creative team is very appreciative, and I think partners like your team are very appreciative the fewer rounds of review that we can have to avoid, the just rounds of minor feedback that aren't necessary. And it maybe is a game of small cuts to creatives when that stuff starts happening, because they feel like it's not productive or even constructive at that point.
Yeah, oh, that's gold there. And it makes me want to just quickly add, in watching you, I think that you do a great job of setting the parameters of engagement. And also there's a delicate way to, are we looking for input or consensus?
Yeah.
Or are we leading through a series of, you're heard, but staying on task. And
Right.
So you're touching on some points that are near and dear, and I've seen you do that very well.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it's definitely something I've learned throughout my career for sure. And I've found that if I don't manage those expectations up front, as a former project manager, I could be taken to task by, some of the top executives at the companies that I worked at, if I didn't have really clear expectations. And everybody wants to be a art director, right? Everybody knows that there's another way. And what if you rewrote it like this? Or what if you designed it like that? And sometimes great things come of that. And other times it can just be a black hole of not productive conversation.
Yeah. Christina, I wanted to reflect for a second, and just as long as you care to go on this, is that, we knit our two teams together. Mm-hmm. And for me, it began with a pitch, right? And literally deciding who to come to meet with you all, and that ultimately became the foundation of this web team. Mm-hmm. By the way, listeners, Christina and I sit waiting to hear which award we won. We know we've won an award for the A&A B2B website category. They just haven't told us if it's a medal or best in show. So we're pretty excited. We definitely are proud, nonetheless, of our teams and how yes. they've how they intermingled and how we knit that together. But just to say, Christina, any reflection on watching that team in its early goes, but now, even now, like how daily the teams interact? Just any thoughts? It would be great feedback for me to listen to. And
sure. Sure. So as you mentioned, when we were doing the RFP for our website redesign, it was really important for me that it wasn't just an agency that we were hiring to come in, take a lot of information, and then go away and make something and deliver it back when it was done. It was really important for me that my internal marketing team, which is basically an in-house agency, had some skin in the game, as well as the agency that we were working with. And I really wanted a true partnership through it all. And I wanted there to be clear goals set. I wanted there to be clear measures of ROI after we were done, so that we knew that all the work and blood, sweat, and tears and time that we had put into it were going to pay off for both teams. The synergy between the team was super important, making sure that we could come to the table, and if we needed to bring in another agency partner, that the agency that we chose was comfortable with that approach, and it wasn't, going to be a kind of a square off, or this is my space kind of thing, territorial situation. And I think that we ended up interviewing maybe 5 or 6 agencies, and the thing that you and I've talked about that really differentiated you all is the collaborative approach that you took to presenting the RFP to us, and those that would be on the team, not just the pitch team, but the people that were going to be on the team came to the table and really were able to articulate what value they would bring to the project. And I think that was very important to us. And having had some experience working with you all, we knew that it wasn't just a pitch, it was really what was going to happen. So that was important to us. As you mentioned, it was definitely a long process, and we were really aligned. And when we felt like we were getting off track, both from your team or my team, we quickly got on telephone calls, or we quickly got together to ensure that we got back on track, and we steered the ship accordingly. And we learned through some first workings with each other that you all kind of set up some fewer meetings than maybe we preferred. So we just, accommodated accordingly, because we knew some people needed to meet more in person, and, some people needed a few more rounds of review, or whatever the case was. But I think that was really the nice dance that we had figured out with each other along the way through the project. And the project wasn't just the Vollrath food service project. It was, really building out 6 websites over the course of several years, and then maintaining those websites after they launched. So we knew that this was not just a one and done kind of project. So I think that we have really found a nice rhythm, and we've had to find ways to even do some team building activities along the way, and get people together and do some recognition throughout to thank people, and make sure that we kept people engaged. But I really look to the CI design team as an extension of our team. I don't necessarily think of them as separate. And maybe sometimes that gets me a little bit in trouble when I'm like, hey, so-and-so, can you jump on an interview call with me? And they're like, this is kind of weird. But I'm like, why is this weird? Because you're part of our team. And so I don't look at it that way. And we've had some people transition off of our team during this time, and some of those people have transitioned back onto our team, but your team has always been, 100% in with us to make sure that nothing slows down, nothing paused, that we just kept the train going forward, which was so important to us. And I think continues to build that level of trust and respect amongst our teams. And, we've launched now another website since the Vollrath food service website, and now we're kicking off another website redesign right now. So it's really been a great experience with the team. And again, I really respect the team's ability to take constructive feedback and give constructive feedback, because after everything, it's super important to debrief and make sure that, we're continuing to improve the processes and not repeat, missing deadlines or any of those things, if any of that ever happens. If it does, it's slim pickings for sure.
Sure. Well, thank you. And great feedback and input too. To the rest of y'all out there, Christina and my teams do have some very formal check-in places where we can say anything. Yeah. And Christina, it's so great too, because I think about it too, like if I think who's that website team, who's the Vollrath website team, it's like interlaced. It's like, I think of the names on your team and our team, and I don't distinguish, which name badge they're wearing. From which company. So it's really great. It has a rhythm. We want to keep it there. It takes intention. So thanks for all your team does to create that culture. I love it.
And I think, one other thing I would add to that too, Jim, is, you and I have a relationship that I think is really critical to the success of our teams and our transparency with each other, but also our level of attention to culture and how important it is to make sure that those things work really well. Because I think that if we were misaligned on those things, I don't know that it would be as successful as it is. So making sure that, it's sort of like mom and dad are aligned on reprimanding or guiding their children in a way. And so at any point, if there's any question, you and I can text each other or get on the phone for 30 seconds and we're like, cool, got it. I'll handle that and you'll handle that part. And
we have
forward. So I think that's really critical.
Next place that I want to go is to talk about last year a little bit in creative teams. And Christina, you and I sat window side eating fresh fin pokey when it all went down. When this is, oh my gosh, this is it. I know you were talking at that time, what will we do of the trade show that you were just ready to head off to, and many more after it. And we like stared out the window basically and just going, brave new world. We don't know. We got to do that together. But so now looking back at it, and again, of talking about creative teams or whichever angle of the teams that you lead, any just reflections on now taking what you were doing and what was working and taking it remote for a time? Any reflections you could share?
Yeah, it was, I would say the easiest way to sum it up is it was hard. And the longer story is we learned so much during that period of time. And I think most of it was really positive. I think that we learned that we could quickly pivot, and that word gets used probably way too much right now, but really pivot to being a digital organization that we were maybe fighting a little bit to go fully into the deep end on. And we were able to prove really quickly that it was the right space to be in and that we could be an industry leader in this space. So, I mentioned earlier that the timing of the website going live was honestly the best thing that happened to us as a company. And it allowed us, as we were finding out, trade shows were being canceled. A huge part of our company is Vollrath University, where we bring in customers from really like April to November to train them in our physical facility. And we have a commercial kitchen where people have hands-on, they eat here, they're more than 6 feet, or they're under 6 feet together. And so all of these things started happening really fast. And so all of the things that we are known from that really differentiate us as a brand started to go away really quickly. So we had to say, okay, how do we still have the touch and the impact with our customers that they lean on us to have and keep them engaged? And so, of course, the website was a great place. We were able to quickly get our Vollrath University. It was live in VU, and now it is live from Vollrath University. And so we were able to, have a training almost every week, if not more frequently, if necessary. And it was a live feed from there, and we could talk specifically about what our customers were telling us they were struggling with. So we were able to quickly launch the breath guards and safety guards, and that was not a product that was in our category. or in our line of products. So within a couple weeks, we were able to turn on that, and our chef Rich, and who is our executive chef and product trainer, he was able to feed that out to our customers and get them what they needed. And that was not something we had previously done. And that was awesome. And we were able to get live feedback on those things. Usually we would have to launch a product at a trade show in a lot of cases, just in a traditional format. We'd wait for NRA or we'd wait for NAFM to launch something big. And so it really allowed us to do things differently. The other thing that we did was we had been talking about launching a podcast, and we just weren't making the time for it. And this was a perfect opportunity for us to try something new. And we knew that, there was little to no risk in doing it. It just took some time. And so we launched that in March really quickly. And we started releasing a new podcast every week. And we have had some absolutely incredible guests on, and we've got an incredible following now. We just launched, I believe, our nearly 60th podcast, which is phenomenal. So I think that, to go back to your original question, how did it impact our creative team? I think they learned that they could do a lot more than they even thought possible. They could be more creative than they even thought possible. Working at home for a lot of them was a huge benefit. I think that, when you're in the office, they love the camaraderie and they love being together and bouncing ideas off each other. But I also think that they like that quiet space. And I think you like this too. And you learned this through the pandemic. They don't need to be in the office every day, and they can get a lot more done, and they can have a lot more creative thought and time when they're at home. And so I think through all of that, we have a lot to show from the pandemic, and all of the amazing content that we made and the new mediums that we're in that we may not have been able to touch on if the pandemic wouldn't have happened.
That's great. Yeah, I'll just briefly say the pandemic broke me of over 25 years of being probably the first one in and the last to leave, and being settled to the office. And really what a highly unimaginative approach that I took, but the disruption finally showed me, no, there's another way. And I just want to shout out to my team, 37 of us or so that, went remote. And the collaboration is still very high, and the output is great. And so I know what you mean when you say that of your team too. It's just great to watch.
Yeah, we've just started getting a lot more people to come back now that people are getting vaccinated, and I think people are feeling better about being in the open office spaces. One, because they're vaccinated, and because they don't have to wear a mask. I think that was a deal breaker when people felt like they had to sit at their desks all day with a mask on, and I get that. So it's interesting too to see. There was a little bit of I can just swing by your office and ask a quick question that, would have taken maybe 2 or 3 emails. And so I think people are seeing that there is still value in coming back in the office again, but maybe I don't have to be there 5 days a week. So what is the figuring out what this new balance is of having both options that we wouldn't have thought about necessarily pre-pandemic.
Yeah. I know you and I both have had new employees start.
Yes.
In fact, during work from home, and so that was interesting, but a privilege now. A couple new starts now that we are back in the office, and that feels really good.
For sure. I think I've spoken with some former colleagues and friends and things of that nature that do a lot of video calls, and I've asked about whether they turn on their video or they don't turn on their video. And I think that, and a lot of my friends will say they don't turn on their videos, partially because they want to multitask and they want to get other things done, and they don't want to get dressed properly for work and things like that. And you can't judge. I get that, right? But I also think that there's, especially as an extreme extrovert, there's something about being able to physically see somebody and engage with that person, even if it's through a screen, that is so much nicer than seeing a black box that has no human interaction at all. And I take a lot away from people's facial expressions and, you know, their hand motions and all of those types of things when I interact with them and I do business, right? So I think that the more we can lean towards this virtual space, that's awesome. But I think that encouraging people as much as we can to be on video and interact with each other this way is also a really advantageous thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we have nearly 100% camera participation. You know, we understand when it can't be, but it really goes a long way to.
Yes, agree.
To do that. Well, Christina, you know, a love of mine is to connect people, and I even had the privilege to introduce you to another person in food service, Kelly from Alto Sham, and you two even meet regularly. I'd like to be a fly on that wall, and even a couple others. But you're such the connector, really, and you've even stood up organizations. And can you just tell us a little bit about that piece of you, the part that makes you want to do that, but also, how those have worked out, and I'll let you just respond.
Yeah, I think that being a connector for me gives me a lot of energy. I think that it's a gift for me, honestly, to cultivate relationships with people. And I'm very much a person of the space of, I want a reciprocal kind of cultivation of a relationship, not just me doing all the work, obviously. But I learned really early on while I was in college, the importance of a network. And, you know, getting into sports is a really hard industry to get into. And as a woman, at the time, it was harder than it is now, I think, to get into. But it was really important to me to, once I got into the industry, to stay in the industry and cultivate relationships. And I just learned that really early on, that it wasn't necessarily what you knew, it's who you knew. And so I really take that to heart, and I want to pay it forward as much as I'm able, so that those that helped me get in the door, even with a conversation, it isn't somebody said, give Christina a job. I had to work for my jobs. But just getting the right person to have a conversation with me was really important, so that I could prove by way of something more than a piece of paper with my resume on it, which at the time had nothing really, other than I babysat and I worked at my dad's office, you know, and so those aren't things that are going to get you a sports marketing job. So it was really important to me to pay that forward, and I just am thrilled when I can help somebody in some way. And you know, the world is really small, to your point, when you saw that our connections, we had 40 people when we hadn't even connected, and we knew 40 of the same people. And so and that's really cool to be able to connect with people and kind of see what those connections are and how they're connected. And when you made an introduction to me to another woman in the food service industry, we happen to have similar roles, which is awesome as well. And you know, we've been able to meet on a monthly basis to really cultivate a really great relationship. And we use each other back and forth to bounce ideas off, and to really position ourselves further as organizations in the market. And we're not direct competitors, which is really helpful to each other as well, so that we can share a bit more. But she and I, you know, we're one of few women executives in the food service industry. So, you know, one of the things that is important to me as well, not only connecting people, is also providing a foundation or opportunities for more women to come into the food service industry, and that we all support each other. And so we've tried to find more ways, a number of us, to get more women in the industry together, whether it's more junior women to help bring them up and provide mentorship to them, or it's, you know, more senior women that can share down and just share experiences, or just be able to like have a coffee or a drink together and be able to share some of our experiences or the challenges that we've been having with each other as well. So it's a really fun way to keep people together and mix things up a little bit as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great to hear. you know, I think of, I've just been trying to think of a way, I didn't script a way to close us out today, Christina, but I think it manifests just right there. You're a champion. And what
you.
makes you a champion is you're a champion for others. So what you just described was, you know, your connecting sure was a way to get your career started, but you use it now to connect others and get them their starts and advance this industry. So thank you for that championship that you are. It's still sports, I guess.
And thank you for your support.
Yeah, for sure. Christine, if somebody wanted to get connected to you, maybe just hit you up on LinkedIn kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Christina Morris Wegner on LinkedIn, so you can hit me up there for sure.
Great. Well, I learned new things today. Thank you for being here. And we'll close out today with a goodbye to the audience. And Christina, I'll talk to you real soon.
All right. Thank you so much. And thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Okay. Bye-bye.